evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephania Cox. Here are today's top stories. President Biden sets a new vaccination goal that he hopes to accomplish by July 4th. He's aiming to get 70% of adults vaccinated. An FBI agent shot and killed a troublemaker at the Virginia CIA headquarters. The man is now identified. In the nation's capital, a Memorial Day weekend motorcycle rally is denied a permit. Traditionally, the bike parade honors fallen veterans, but this year they may need special accommodation. Over 100,000 patients in America are currently waiting for an organ transplant. While some go abroad for the procedure, Virginia residents are encouraged not to travel to China for organ transplants. 7 global players consider how best to tackle China, and America's top diplomat asserts his position. We've got 2 months till Independence Day. Ahead of that, President Biden has set a new vaccination goal. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that story.
President Biden says he wants nearly 3/4 of American adults vaccinated by Independence Day.
Our goal by July 4th is to have 70% of adult Americans with at least one shot and 160 million Americans fully vaccinated.
To make this happen, he says he's working with businesses like grocery stores to give discounts to shoppers if they get vaccinated. The CDC estimates that over 55% of adults have already gotten at least one shot. Biden says vaccinating children will be a focus. At the moment, no vaccine has been approved for children under 16. But the New York Times says the FDA is moving to approve the Pfizer vaccine for use in children early next week. If Pfizer does get this approval, doctors will be able to give 12 to 15-year-olds the shot. Biden says that if it's approved, he's ready to ramp up those vaccinations.
I want American parents to know that if that announcement comes, we are ready to move immediately move to make about 20,000 pharmacy sites across the country ready to vaccinate those adolescents as soon as the FDA grants its okay.
But getting children this young vaccinated against COVID-19 is debated. Health experts like Paul Alexander, a former Health and Human Services official, says children can do without these experimental vaccines because of their low risk of contracting the illness. According to Harvard Medical School, most children infected with the virus are asymptomatic, meaning they don't have any symptoms. That doesn't mean they can't spread it, a point Biden made in his speech. Steph, back to you.
Thanks, Miguel. And Canada's health minister says the country will absolutely take part in vaccine passports for international travel. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Canada is looking to discuss the issue with its European partners, and it will reportedly align vaccine passport policies with international allies. And a suspected intruder who tried to drive into CIA headquarters in Virginia has died. The man was shot at roughly 6 p.m. local time on Monday and later died from his injuries. According to law enforcement officials, Roy Gordon Cole Jr. drove up to the CIA headquarters in McLean, Virginia, and he threatened that there was a bomb in his car. After a long standoff and lengthy negotiations with law enforcement, Cole refused to move and allegedly drew a gun. He was then shot by an FBI agent. The FBI is often tight-lipped whenever there is an agent-involved shooting. They released a statement saying they're reviewing the incident. An official said Cole was known to the CIA because of previous encounters. He reportedly tried to drive into the facilities before, and there are questions about his mental state. And U.S. representatives today discussed proposals for lowering drug prices. House Democrats reintroduced a controversial bill, but those skeptical of the bill say it would restrict access to certain medications. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the story.
Congress is in the midst of negotiating a law to lower drug prices, a problem lawmakers have been trying to rectify for years.
I just don't believe that any American should have to choose between paying for the prescription drugs they need to stay healthy and other basic necessities like food and rent.
But some say the issue has become too politicized and used as a tool to get votes rather than rationally trying to solve it.
It's just so easy to get, cheap votes. by playing a very populist red meat game with these things when it has absolutely no understanding of how the economic realities of this business works. That's what's really concerning to me.
And House Democrats have reintroduced H.R. 3, which is a controversial bill aiming to lower drug prices through government mandates, but it does come with sacrifices.
But newer drugs will simply not be invested in. Again, I don't dispute your earlier comments that it would immediately lower drug prices. Of course, I mean, by law, it's making their drug prices lower. The concerns we have are, of course, with innovation.
And we're going to look at Europe, which often, puts in pricing restrictions and artificial barriers to access, and often embargoes certain drugs or puts things in, limits access to those drugs in order to artificially keep the price down. We're trying to then import those mechanisms into the U.S. healthcare system, which is very odd because we don't have that system.
One reason U.S. drug prices are so much higher than other countries is because U.S. dominates in research and development, and that is costly. Critics of H.R. 3 say this bill would forfeit this global dominance.
And when you start reducing revenues by this large of an amount, you essentially get rid of entire portfolios, entire research lines, neurological disorders, Alzheimer's disease, rare cancers, orphan drugs that will just go away.
Another reason common drugs like insulin are so high, according to research from consultancy Vital Transformation, is the big profit gobbled up by middlemen.
What we found was 50% of the revenue was literally missing in a lot of the insulin companies. And the only place that revenue can be going is the pharmaceutical benefit manager.
To dissect the problem at its root, Schultes suggests monopolies should be broken down and policymakers should look for ways to accelerate drug development so it takes less time and is less costly. Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Over 100,000 patients in America are waiting for an organ transplant. Some are urging lawmakers to reform the rules to increase transplants, while a few counties in Virginia are telling their residents not to travel to China for their organ transplants.
On Tuesday, the House Economic and Consumer Policy Subcommittee chairman examined the nation's system for securing organ transplants for patients.
Too many Americans, over 107,000, are on an organ waitlist. Too many, 33 every day, pass away before an organ becomes available.
The number of available organs for transplants does not meet this demand. In the U.S., on average, only 37,500 organs were transplanted annually in the past 4 years. That's why many patients discouraged by the lengthy wait time have gone abroad for transplants. But over the past decade, reports have uncovered that the Chinese communist regime has been killing prisoners of conscience to supply its organ transplantation industry. Many of the harvested organs come from people persecuted for their beliefs, such as Falun Dafa practitioners. Also on Tuesday, lawmakers in Culpeper County, Virginia, unanimously passed a resolution to educate people about forced organ harvesting in China. Experts will inform the county's 50,000 residents about the risks of traveling to China for organ transplants. Culpeper County wishes to raise awareness and to stop local residents from engaging in organ transplant tourism in China. Since this January, over 10 counties in Virginia have condemned the Chinese regime's practice of forced organ harvesting.
Texas state senators unanimously passed a resolution condemning Communist China's practice of forced organ harvesting. A transplant specialist from a Texas clinic explains why this resolution is necessary. NTD's Allison Lee has the story.
We need to get this out there. We need to stop this practice.
Texas Dr. Howard Mansour is one of the witnesses who testified before state senators about forced organ harvesting in China. 10 years ago, he had a patient who had liver cancer, but multiple transplant centers in Texas turned him down because his chance of survival was too low. The patient then went to China, saying he has some connections there.
At that time, I had no idea what was going on in China and how these organs were being harvested, and neither did he. At least he didn't express any idea that this was going on. He just wanted to live. He ended up going over and getting the transplant.
The patient came back to the U.S. but still died of cancer 8 months later. Since then, Mansour learned about the Chinese Communist regime's practice of forcibly extracting organs from living prisoners of conscience. He now says he would have warned the patient about it had he known about it back then. He says he believes desperation drove that patient to unknowingly be part of the horrific practice.
We all like to think we're moral individuals, but when we're faced with death, we'll try anything, and we really have to protect our people from going over and doing this, and we really have to punish the people that are participating in this.
The doctor explains, while organ donors are traceable in the U.S., in China the authorities don't reveal the patients where those organs come from. But many around the world still visit China for organ transplants because the wait time is significantly shorter there compared to the rest of the world. Since testifying to the Texas legislature, Monsour has talked to many fellow Americans and many in the science community about forced organ harvesting.
I'll sit down and tell people what's going on in China, the look on people's eyes. People can't believe it. People can't believe it. That's going to be the challenge, to get people to believe this, because it sounds so horrific.
In 2019, an independent international tribunal concluded that forced organ harvesting has been taking place in China for years and on significant scale. Reports of the disturbing practice first emerged in 2006. Prisoners of conscience, in particular adherents of the spiritual practice Falun Dafa, are believed to be the primary source of organs. Monsour says we need to raise awareness about it, not only because it's immoral, but also because Americans must understand the mindset behind a regime that would do such a thing.
That says more than just the fact of transplant. That says what this government really is that would do something like this. And that is, to me, having an understanding of what they are, there's obviously no morals there.
Monsour believes the Chinese regime's immorality is also a threat to Americans. He hopes the resolution can encourage medical professionals to warn their patients about forced organ harvesting in China. That way, they can both protect Texans from unknowingly partaking in such a practice and help curb the practice, he says. Allison Lee, NTD News.
An annual motorcycle ride honoring fallen and missing war heroes has been denied a key permit for the event. The ride, set for May 30th over Memorial Day weekend, has organizers looking for alternatives. NTD's Steve Lance has more from Washington, D.C.
For the past 30 years, veterans have been gathering for an annual motorcycle ride through Washington, D.C. over Memorial Day weekend to remember the fallen soldiers killed or missing in battle. But this year's ride, Rolling to Remember, hosted by AmVets, might not happen. Of all government agencies that have to sign off on the permits, the least likely of all has denied a permit for the group, the Pentagon. This particular permit would be used for the staging and meeting point for the event. The Pentagon told Joe Cinelli, the National Executive Director of AmVets, that it was because of the CCP virus that they would not issue them the permit. But Cinelli says his organization has put in the safety measures needed to safely carry out the event.
This year we've spent months on developing a safety plan. We feel that it's very confident that we're able to have a demonstration outdoors.
He says that being outdoors and the nature of motorcycles and size provides plenty of distancing.
Really all we are looking to do at this point this year is to ride motorcycles around the National Mall, past our National War Memorials, past the White House and the Capitol building, and just be heard on Memorial Day weekend in our nation's capital. The average motorcycle is 8 feet long, so the social distancing is built in there. We have other plans that we had proposed.
According to Cinelli, they have received conditional approval from 9 out of 10 agencies needed to complete the event, with the Pentagon being the only one to have denied them. However, the Pentagon is key as it will allow them to properly and safely set up for the event.
But of those 10 agencies that we would initially work with on a year-to-year basis, the Pentagon is the only one who has told us that we were not able to demonstrate on their property.
Cinelli told us that they are still focused on moving forward with the event and that they are working with other agencies to try and accommodate them. Steve Lance, NTD News, Washington.
Hundreds of police officers left the Washington, D.C. Police Department in the last 11 months. The D.C. Police Union says the police reform bill needs to be changed to prevent losing more officers. Since June of 2020, the D.C. Police Department has lost 326 police officers. About half resigned and the rest retired. But homicides in the district are up 36% this year. The D.C. Police Union said in a statement Monday that the police reform bill has a negative impact. After George Floyd's death, the D.C. Council unanimously passed the emergency bill last June. The bill prohibits police from using tear gas, pepper spray, or rubber bullets to respond to protests. Under the bill, officers are required to release their body cam footage within 72 hours of an incident. And people with police misconduct cannot be hired. The D.C. Police Union criticizes this bill for putting officers in danger and making their jobs harder. There are 3,623 members remaining in the district's police department. And Senator Josh Hawley said today big tech has an incredible amount of influence on both sides of the aisle, and that the free speech Americans enjoy now depends on the whims of monopoly corporations.
Senator Josh Hawley is a strong supporter of breaking up big tech companies to avoid monopolies. He was also the first senator to object to President Biden's Electoral College win on January 6th. Because of Hawley's position, publisher Simon & Schuster dropped his upcoming book, titled The Tyranny of Big Tech. Shortly after, Regnery Publishing, a publisher of conservative books, acquired the work. The book was released on Tuesday.
One of the things I'm concerned about, and I write about this in the book, is the incredible amount of influence these companies have on both sides of the aisle, unfortunately. And we saw them try to leverage that influence in the last election with the incredible amount of money.
Senator Hawley also suggests withdrawing Section 230 immunity if big tech companies engage in behavior such as advertising or censoring based on political views. Currently, Section 230 provides immunity for online platforms from civil liability based on third-party content. On Wednesday, Facebook's oversight board is expected to announce its biggest decision yet, whether to reverse the platform's indefinite ban on former President Trump. Hawley shared his view on the matter.
It's sad that right now in our country that the free speech that Americans enjoy basically depends on the whims of monopoly corporations. I have no idea how this board really operates. Nobody does. And this is the Facebook Supreme Court, as Facebook has sometimes called it. I don't think any one company should have this kind of power over speech, over data, over news and information.
Senator Hawley introduced two bills recently. One aims to strengthen antitrust enforcement to pursue the breakup of dominant anti-competitive firms. The other aims to restore accountability and competition to big tech. Currently, the business practices of Amazon, Apple, Alphabet, Google's parent company, and Facebook are still being scrutinized by Congress. According to a new poll by Investors Business Daily and Technometrica, a majority of Americans support breaking up the four tech giants to prevent monopolies. 64% worry about their limitations on freedom of speech and expression.
It looks like former President Trump launched a new communications platform of sorts. This is after he was banned from Twitter and other social media groups. The platform is on Trump's personal website, and it includes social media-like posts that can be shared to Facebook and Twitter. A video introducing the platform says it is a place to speak freely and safely straight from the desk of Donald J. Trump. Currently, it's not possible to create user accounts or reply to Trump's post. Trump is the only poster. It's not clear whether it will be devoted into a full-fledged social media website. The Kansas governor recently vetoed 2 election bills, but the Republican-controlled legislature just overrode the veto. Now they've passed the bills. Advocates say this will help fair and transparent elections, and critics call it voter suppression. Under the bills, the Secretary of State is not allowed to extend the deadline for receiving advanced mail-in ballots. They also require election officers to verify the signatures on absentee ballots before accepting them. This doesn't apply to voters who have disabilities. And it's now a misdemeanor for one person to collect and return more than 10 ballots. Republican lawmakers say they're preventing fraud and making the election process more transparent. Senate Minority Leader Dinah Sykes says the legislature is more extreme than ever. Severe thunderstorms are forecast to hit the south for a second time this week. The threatened zone is over 1,000 miles wide. NTD's Dawn Tran has the details.
Large parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee, as well as corners of Arkansas and Georgia, are at enhanced risk for extreme weather. Multiple thunderstorms are predicted to cause flooding downpours, hail, damaging wind gusts, and a few tornadoes. The National Weather Service said these weather conditions will continue in these areas into the evening hours of the night. Tornado watches were issued in Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Forecasters said tornadoes could hit parts of Mississippi well into the evening. They also said storms could produce wind gusts of up to 70 miles per hour and hail to the size of golf balls. The incoming weather follows heavy weather that moved across the South on Sunday and Monday. 2 people were killed in Georgia and 1 person died in Tennessee. Don Tran, NTD News.
2 dozen people died last night when a passenger train fell onto a busy street in Mexico City. The cause of the accident has not yet been determined. NTD's Jason Perry has the story, and just a warning that the following footage may disturb you.
Mexico's president is calling for a thorough and public investigation into a shocking train wreck Monday night. He says the probe should be done quickly and with nothing hidden from the Mexican people.
The Mexican people must know the whole truth. Nothing will be hidden from them because we must act responsibly, as always, as we in the government have done it. We do not hide things. We speak truthfully.
At least 24 people were killed and 79 people were injured in Mexico City after a railroad overpass collapsed as a passenger train rode across it. Part of the train and bridge landed onto several cars below on a busy road. Several children are among the dead. First responders arrived at the site, but their search and rescue efforts were temporarily called off. That's because 2 train carriages were suspended over the collapsed bridge. The rescue crew feared more heavy debris could fall from the unstable bridge. Cranes were brought in and they used heavy chains to help stabilize the rubble, and firemen then pulled out lifeless bodies and survivors from the wreckage. Nearby hospitals treated the injured. The Mexico City mayor offered support to the families.
Our solidarity goes to all the families who have lost someone and to all those who have someone at the hospital. We will attend to them and we will give them all the support they need.
Authorities say they're unaware of what exactly caused the train crash, but an investigation is underway. 4 people who live in the area say they had seen the support structures below the elevated tracks visibly shaking when trains crossed. This is Mexico's second serious train accident of the year. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Up next, a New York City woman attacked 2 others with a hammer. One of the victims suffered injuries while trying to defend herself. And we'll look at a restaurant owner who says business is going well, but workers are hard to find. She says she's not alone. That and more on NTD News. New York City police is investigating a hammer attack on 2 women. One woman suffered injuries while trying to defend herself. NTD's Arian Pazdar has the story.
31-year-old Teresa came from Taiwan to New York City in 2019 to study here at the Fashion Institute of Technology in Midtown Manhattan. Now on Sunday night, she and her friend went to a subway station in Hell's Kitchen. ABC News reported they went together because they felt there was the safer option, and that choice turned out to be the right one. The New York City Police Department released a surveillance video of the incident. The suspected attacker approached the women on the sidewalk and demanded they remove their masks. When Teresa and her friend refused, the woman struck them with a hammer. Teresa suffered a deep cut to the head and was taken to the hospital to get stitches. The other woman didn't appear to have any injuries. One of the women swung a wine bottle at the attacker in defense. At one point, the attacker dropped the hammer and Teresa picked it up. She told ABC the attacker was talking to herself and it seemed she was drunk. Teresa and her friend tried to pass by quickly, but before they knew it, the woman was attacking them. Teresa reportedly stopped defending herself when she realized that she was bleeding heavily from her head. After the attacker took off, people nearby rushed to the victim and helped her. Teresa and her mother decided that it's safer for her to go back to Taiwan for now, but she says she might come back to the States if she finds a good job here. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Small businesses across America have dealt with CCP virus lockdowns in various ways, but government involvement may have brought new difficulties. A restaurant owner in Chicago told NTD what she's doing to keep her business going.
As lockdowns ease and business starts returning to normal, new employees should be showing up with resumes in hand. But that's not the case so far, according to the owner of the Soul Shack, Keisha Rucker.
Yes. So this is the funny part is now we're currently short-staffed. So I literally had people in here multitasking. I was in here cashiering. My daughter's in here cashiering. I actually had to hire my daughter to come in and be one of the cashiers because I can't find staff.
Rucker is not alone. She says that she sees hiring signs all over the city.
I spoke to a couple other business owners, and I think a lot of people are still getting unemployment, and the unemployment is probably higher than what they're getting at the restaurant, in the restaurant industry.
One of Rucker's longtime chefs shares her view.
Right now with the stimulus checks and everybody being able to receive unemployment, a lot of people would rather not work. Some people, it could be a safety risk. Some people just prefer to collect unemployment.
No one really wants to work. Like everyone, I feel like COVID has crippled a lot of people, so everyone is expecting everything to be done for them. Like, you know, the government sending out the stimulus packages and, you know, extended unemployment, everyone is crippled. You know, I can't depend on that, like, because at the end of the day, they can stop it at any moment, and then you're just looking up like, oh, you know, what am I supposed to do now?
I believe a lot of people are really just staying at home. It's comfortable. I personally don't understand how I have to work. I have bills to pay. So of course, I'm trying to work and keep the doors open.
She does it not just for money, but for love.
This is my baby. This is like my child. I actually do have children. I have 3 daughters, but this is my child because I had a vision, I put the vision into play, and I watch it flourish.
Rucker has run her restaurant since 2019 and plans to keep it open much longer.
Wearing a mask is an inconvenience for most of us, but for the deaf and hard of hearing, it can destroy communication. NTD's Sapphire Quarter tells us more.
Masks are life-changing for deaf people. They block lips for lip reading and prevent facial expressions from being seen, which are important when communicating with someone you can't understand. We spoke with Dr. Ann McIntosh about what it's like to walk around a city full of masked people. She equated it to a hearing person walking around without being able to hear any sound.
Being able to read people's facial expression is how deaf people listen.
One woman described her experience checking out at a grocery store. Sorensen provided us an interpreter so we could communicate.
You're used to them making small chat with you, and I could kind of catch that beforehand. But with people wearing masks, I wasn't sure if they were trying to communicate with me or they're breathing. And I was just left to my own imagination as to what they might be trying to say.
In addition, American Sign Language uses facial expressions. You can get by without them, but it throws things off. Things like sarcasm is harder to get across.
This could indicate disgust or dislike, or this facial expression could use saying I'm afraid of something. You don't even need to sign anything to communicate that. Now imagine that that's all muted.
She says things like video phones have been life-saving for the deaf community during the pandemic. Another solution is wearing a clear face mask.
And it's going to still provide you that same protection, but it's going to open up a world for people who are deaf and hard of hearing.
The National Deaf Association is working on policies to address these issues, such as asking police officers to have clear masks available for traffic stops. Sapphire Quarter, NTD News.
Coming up, the Pentagon chief says the U.S. needs a new vision for defense. That's because cyber and space threats from Beijing will make future warfare different. And a new report says Chinese coastal regions may be at higher risk of natural disasters. That's due to rising sea levels in recent years. That and more on NTD News.
%90 of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
In uncertain times, people rush to buy physical gold and silver. It's strong, solid, dependable. Now is the time to buy from the trusted source, Westminster Mint. With 20 years experience, an A+ BBB rating, and our unconditional 30-day money-back guarantee, Westminster Mint is America's dealer. The best value in gold coins today is this newly released 2021 $50 American Gold Eagle coin, certified a perfect 70 by the world's largest grading service, NGC. At 1 full ounce of pure gold, this 2021 Gold Eagle is the biggest and most beautiful coin struck for circulation. Get yours now while you can at our exclusive low price. Call right now and get the Gold Eagle's perfect companion, the 2021 Silver Eagle, absolutely free with your purchase. With free shipping and a 30-day money-back guarantee, Westminster Mint is America's dealer. Hurry for your early release 2021 American Gold Eagle and free Silver Eagle before they're gone. Call now.
Top diplomats from the world's 7 biggest advanced economies are coming up with plans to deal with global challenges. And here's their take on an increasingly aggressive Chinese Communist Party. NTD's Juliette Song has the details.
Foreign ministers from the world's 7 power players, or G7, are discussing how to deal with various challenges. And at the top of their agenda is China. But America's top diplomat Antony Blinken clarifies that the purpose of the gathering isn't to contain China or hold it down.
What we are trying to do is to uphold the international rules-based order that our countries have invested so much in over so many decades, to the benefit, I would argue, not just of our own citizens, but of people around the world, including, by the way, China.
He says when China challenges that order,
we will stand up and defend the order.
Blinken's remarks come as Beijing is becoming bolder with its ambition to lead the world order. The Chinese regime has been rapidly expanding and upgrading its nuclear arsenal, and Chinese military crafts have been frequently buzzing Taiwan's air defense zone. U.S. intelligence reports also warn that Beijing is one of America's biggest threats right now. British Foreign Minister Dominic Raab says he sees the need to hold Beijing to the commitments they've made.
Whether it's in relation to Hong Kong under the joint declaration or wider commitments, whilst also at the same time finding constructive ways to work with China in a sensible and positive manner where that's possible. That's important, I think, on global issues like climate change. We want to see China stepping up to the plate and playing its full role.
Aside from China, the 7 countries also talked about economic recovery, human rights, and food security. The G7 includes the US, the UK, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan. This year, the host UK has also invited other guests like Australia and India. The meeting is laying the groundwork for another meeting between G7 leaders next month, and President Biden is set to travel to the UK for the meeting in his very first overseas trip. Juliette Song, NTD News.
The U.S. Defense Secretary predicts that in the near future, warfare will be different from what we're familiar with. He says the U.S. needs to keep its technological edge. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more.
The U.S. Defense Secretary is calling for a new vision for American defense in his first major speech. Last Friday, Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin depicted a new vision in the face of emerging cyber and space threats from Beijing and the prospect of bigger conflicts. He calls on the current administration to use technological advances to address these threats. He specifically mentions quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and edge computing. That's a method that speeds up response time by processing and sharing data as they are collected. Facing China's accelerating military modernization, Austin warns that the U.S. cannot be satisfied with having the world's strongest armed forces. He adds saying not at a time when our potential adversaries are very deliberately working to blunt our edge. 4-star General David Berger from the U.S. Marine Corps also stated earlier that the U.S. military needs to upgrade its equipment to deal with Beijing's threat. According to U.S.-based media Breaking Defense, Berger delivered a memo to Austin back in February. And the memo reportedly lists Communist China as the top threat to the U.S. for the first time. The sea level is rising along China's coast. Official reports suggest it may lead to more natural disasters. Chinese authorities report that sea levels along the country's entire coastline are higher than normal. China's Ministry of Natural Resources blamed the change on the land sinking. In 2017, a geological survey showed higher sea levels tend to result in more floods, typhoons, and land loss. They also lead to salty soil, which can cause wetland ecosystems to deteriorate. In 2019, Chinese authorities reported that land areas in over 100 cities were sinking, twice as many as the figures from a few years ago. Major cities affected include Shanghai and Guangzhou. Shanghai is a megacity located at the mouth of China's longest river, the Yangtze River. Because of that, the ground is softer there. The sea level will reach its highest seasonal levels from August to October. The weight of large buildings there, coupled with overuse of groundwater, both contribute to land sinkage. A decade ago, Time magazine reported that Shanghai's urban area had sunk more than 6 feet over the past 90 years. The dramatic shift also poses a threat to locals. U.S.-based research institute Climate Center says rising sea levels could put 93 million Chinese residents at risk by 2050. Last year, disasters like flooding and storm surge caused economic losses totaling $130 million. Zhejiang province was among those hit the hardest. In 2019, a typhoon there led to an economic loss of nearly $6 billion. The region will again enter its high tide period starting in August. Parts of Hong Kong will also be at risk later this year.
Coming up, Pfizer announces its first quarter results. We take a look at what impact its COVID vaccine had on profits. And we take a look at the hottest entry-level remote jobs for new graduates this year. Which career categories are the most promising? That and much more coming up on NTD News. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says the Federal Reserve may have to raise interest rates to prevent the economy from overheating if President Biden's multiple spending bills are implemented. Here's what she said at an event hosted by The Atlantic magazine.
You know, it may be that interest rates will have to rise somewhat to make sure that our economy doesn't overheat, even though the additional spending is relatively small relative to the size of the economy.
Yellen made the comment as Biden keeps pushing his multi-trillion-dollar spending plans. Two recent proposals combined would be worth about $4 trillion to fund programs from infrastructure and green energy to childcare and education. But there are signs prices are picking up. Consumer prices in March were up 2.6% from a year ago, the fastest pace since August 2018. And Pfizer's first quarter financials are out, and its COVID-19 vaccine has proven to be an extremely profitable investment. It accounted for over a quarter of its total revenues. NTD's Colin Frederickson has the story.
Pfizer rakes in $3.5 billion in revenue from its CCP virus vaccine alone. That's almost a fourth of its entire first quarter revenue. They expect over 20% of that to be profit.
We can make, approximately 2.5 billion doses this year. We can take that up to 3 billion doses next year. And that's what we're really focused on, right? Getting those made, getting them delivered, and getting vaccines into patients' arms.
Second place goes to blood-thinning drug Eliquis, with worldwide revenues of $1.6 billion. And third goes to Prevnar 13, a children's vaccine that helps protect them from bacteria, at $1.3 billion. Pfizer expects the vaccine to continue bringing in revenue, with people getting second shots after the first. However, they haven't been very open on vaccine pricing. We know the U.S. pays almost $20 for each dose, but we have no idea what the EU pays.
I really want to not get into detail on pricing, other than obviously there's certain contracts where we disclose what the price is. In terms of the way I think about this, what we're really focused on now is getting doses to the patients that need doses around the world.
Unlike other vaccines, Pfizer's vaccine must always be kept in low temperatures, making it less practical in poorer countries. Pfizer has pledged around 40 million doses to COVAX, an organization dedicated to providing vaccines to poor countries. Colin Frederickson, NTD News.
Elizabeth Holmes, the founder of a now-defunct blood testing company, appeared in court for the first time in a year. This after multiple delays and rescheduling. We hear more from NTD's David Lamb.
Elizabeth Holmes has been charged with fraud involving Theranos, Inc., a life science and healthcare company she founded in 2003. The company dissolved in 2018. Holmes appeared in federal court in San Jose, California on Tuesday. Holmes and former Theranos COO Ramesh Balwani were allegedly part of a multi-million-dollar scheme to defraud investors, doctors, and patients by falsely claiming that their technology can revolutionize lab tests with just a few drops of blood. Holmes and Balwani both pleaded not guilty. At its height, the company reached a $9 billion valuation based on its promise to disrupt the laboratory testing business. Holmes' appearance on Tuesday is the first of 3 hearings this week. Her trial was originally scheduled for July 2020, but was postponed due to the pandemic and again this year due to Holmes' pregnancy. If convicted, the defendants could face up to 20 years in prison, as well as a $250,000 fine, plus restitution for each count of fraud. Holmes is scheduled for trial on August 31st. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
People may soon be able to harness the power of the sun, or at least something as hot as the sun. A California-based company claims it's making progress towards generating power from nuclear fusion. NTD's Eileen Ang has more details.
Fusion energy technology developer TAE Technologies claims they hit a milestone after successfully producing stable plasma at temperatures over 50 million degrees Celsius, or 90 million degrees Fahrenheit. That's 3 times hotter than the center of the sun. The reactor, named Norman, was consistently able to reach those high temperatures in the last 18 months. Its ultimate goal is to generate sustainable carbon-free energy, but as of now, the CEO says it can't generate energy yet. Their next goal is to develop the technology further to actually make energy from the fusion reaction. The company also claims it to be a safer fusion technology. It won't generate long-lived nuclear waste, emit greenhouse gases, or pose a meltdown risk. It uses boron, a non-radioactive fuel source. Norman is the 5th generation and cost $150 million to achieve. The company has raised over $880 million from top investors. The compact machine could be sold commercially after a decade, and the group believes it's one step closer to bringing fusion within grasp. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
This spring, new graduates will be vying for their first job out of college. NTD's Phil Zoe looks at the hottest careers for entry-level remote jobs.
Some new graduates who want to work remotely are finding it difficult to land a job.
And it was really tough because there's a lot of jobs out there, but there's also a lot of people applying, so it's hard to kind of make yourself stand out.
But job search website FlexJobs says opportunities are out there, even for remote working.
It is more possible than ever to get a remote job. The shift that we've seen over the last year has really changed how often and available remote work will be going forward.
Entry-level remote jobs are growing in industries like human resources, sales, and call centers.
Don't get disheartened and get out there and find those remote jobs because they definitely exist more now than ever.
After surveying 400 workers, FlexJobs says at least 1 in 3 have learned a new professional skill during the pandemic.
And I learned a lot more things about this job.
Just find a niche, find something you're really good at instead of just applying to like 100 jobs and who knows what they are.
Besides teamwork, working independently is also important.
Your ability to focus, your self-management and self-direction skills, staying on task when nobody is looking over your shoulder.
Besides salary and pay, workers had different priorities.
The most important is benefits.
I really look for the quality of life and the sense of community. I don't want to go to work feeling like I'm alone. I want to be treated well,
Accounting, medical, computer, and IT also made it to the list for offering remote entry-level jobs. Phil Zoe, NTD News, New York.
Coming up, as the 200th anniversary of Napoleon's death approaches, we take a look at the French Emperor's legacy through his private country home. And a popular tourist destination that suffered huge losses from the pandemic is now hopeful about the future. That much more after this short break.
It's just clear as day. The media, whether it's broadcast, cable, or print media, has become extremely biased. And I started looking online for alternative ways to get information. And I saw an ad for a free trial. And I looked at it and I said, Epoch Times. I mean, come on, this is end of days type of stuff. I mean, what are they going to be talking about here? And I said, well, it's a free trial. Let me dig in. Is it giving me both sides? Is it giving me an objective point of view here? I have looked for opportunities to see where they might be biased, and I don't find it. It has given me a level of trust in media that I didn't think I'd ever get back. I love the Epoch Times because it has renewed my faith in the idea that a reliable, responsible, non-biased source of information is available. And I can say that I love it because of that.
This just in, Derek Chauvin's legal team is requesting a new trial on multiple grounds. Chauvin's attorney alleges that jury misconduct and pre-trial publicity contributed to the former police officer getting convicted of George Floyd's murder last month. And now, while he was conquering Europe, Napoleon Bonaparte thought about how to make Paris a new Rome and restore the glorious art of antiquity in Europe. As the anniversary of the French emperor's death approaches, we learn more about his legacy. NTD's David Vivas has the story.
The Château de Malmaison was Napoleon's private country residence. The emperor used to pose between battles within these walls, where his first wife Josephine waited for him. The chateau's interiors showcases a grand display of what is called the art of the First Empire.
We are in the room of Josephine, an oval room with 16 columns, mirrors facing each other to give more light and depth, and a golden wooded bed with golden swans. The Empress Josephine thought swans were a symbol of happiness and majesty.
Art of the Empire style, just as Renaissance art, is inspired by antiquity. It is marked by the use of Greek columns, marble stone, and sculptures of divinities.
The decoration is about giving an antique atmosphere, with sculptures and carved stone paving the floor.
The angels and god statues were also a reference to the emperor, like in New Julius Caesar. The art also served as propaganda, like this majestic painting showing Napoleon crossing the Alps in 1799.
See the calm look on his face, riding a fiery horse? It makes him look like a hero of antiquity, pointing the finger toward heaven as he was going to meet his fate.
According to historians, the story of Napoleon is one of a headlong rush for expansion. Though his conquests extended the border of his kingdom, in less than 20 years, it shrunk back to its original size after the emperor's abdication, as if his vision for an enlarged empire were but a passing dream.
Napoleon's legacy does not stand in his conquests, as the kingdom's borders receded to what it was. It stands with the organization of the state he built. This could be labeled as his masterpiece.
The emperor was said to seek the perfect way to reign over a country and give it stability and prosperity. He re-established the place of religion at the center of society, created the civil code. He also founded the patronage of the arts. The emperor tried to attain the glory of the old Roman Empire.
At that time, he wanted Paris to be the new Rome in Europe. The art he funded was not all for propaganda, as we sometimes think. He really wanted to embellish France with art pieces and also the other countries he conquered.
The commemoration of the 200th anniversary of the emperor's death will begin on Wednesday, May 5th. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Britain is looking to foster closer ties with India, including a free trade deal. On Tuesday, the government announced $1 billion of new trade and investment with India.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson said on Tuesday the UK has signed a £1 billion investment and trade deal with India. He says the deal will create more than 6,500 jobs in the UK. Downing Street says the package contains more than £530 million of new investment from India into the UK. It is expected to create jobs in sectors such as health and technology. The deal also includes a £240 million investment by the world's largest vaccine manufacturer, Serum Institute of India. The investment will support clinical trials, research and possibly the manufacturing of vaccines. Downing Street says British businesses have secured export deals with India worth more than £440 million, which is expected to create more than 400 British jobs. The Prime Minister met his Indian counterpart, Narendra Modi, during a virtual meeting on Tuesday. Johnson was forced to cancel his planned visit to Delhi due to the country's worsening COVID-19 situation. During the virtual talks, the two leaders agreed on an enhanced trade partnership. International Trade Secretary Liz Truss says Britain and India will start negotiations for a full, free trade deal in autumn. She told Sky News Britain wanted to see India's tariffs on imported cars and whisky lowered or removed as part of such a deal.
Italy's glamorous tourist destination, the island of Capri, has always been blue because of the water surrounding it. Now it's hoping to shake off the pandemic blues after a year of on and off closures that have depressed the Italian economy. Olivia Chan reports.
Rhino has been rowing tourists around the famed Blue Grotto on the island of Capri for 33 years, just like his father did before him. 2020 was the first time he saw the Mediterranean island empty.
Yes, we've been able to enjoy the island ourselves, because usually for us Caprese, it's very difficult to enjoy this island. With the pandemic, one could go for walks. Look at the grotto without boats. It's beautiful. But how can I say it? It doesn't work.
According to official data, Capri's visitor numbers plunged by about 70% compared to 2019, before the global health crisis hit. Now the tourist destination, made famous by superstars such as Audrey Hepburn and Sophia Loren, is slowly reopening, hoping to shake off the blues after a year of on and off closures. Optimism bubbles among luxury fashion shops and top-tier accommodation, like the 5-star Punta Tragara Hotel.
I can sense a positive spirit, a spirit of recovery. So for the upcoming month of May, when more or less all of the island's businesses will reopen, this gives me hope, and maybe this anxiety will not be part of our baggage anymore.
The European Union has said American visitors, a traditional mainstay for Capri's tourist season, can travel to member countries this year if they have been vaccinated. For Federico, the global health crisis has left its mark, and the island is ready to recover from it as fast as possible.
South Africa's wildlife parks are concerned about a potential increase in rhino poaching this year after a near-decade low in 2020.
South Africa's wildlife parks fear a rebound in rhino poaching this year, despite incidents plunging 33% in 2020, a near-decade low. Restrictions on international and local travel prevented the movement of poachers and their products last year. But the situation could get a lot worse again post-lockdown, as WWF's Joe Shaw explains.
The restriction of movement of people within the parks reduced the amount of information available to the organised networks looking for rhino horn. And that's one of the reasons why poaching numbers were down. There is a very real and realised threat as poaching pressure has increased since lockdown, perhaps to meet the demand from the international markets.
Shaw said that since the end of 2020, when some travel restrictions were lifted, Kruger National Park has experienced a serious number of rhino poaching incidents. Reserves have been battling tighter budgets, with many forced to cut back on anti-poaching patrols. Poachers sometimes shoot rhinos with a tranquilizer gun before the horn is hacked off, resulting in the animal being left to bleed to death. Balule Nature Reserve, located in the Greater Kruger system and home to the Big Five, has dehorned 100 rhinos since April 2019. Sharon Houseman is the reserve's chairperson.
In Balule, we have decided to dehorn our entire population because of our high level of threat. We dehorn every rhino, and even rhinos with calves. We would immobilize the calf together with the the cow, and even the calves' horns will be ground down to a safe level.
The Ministry of Environment says there are about 16,000 rhinos in the country. Rhino populations in the Kruger National Park have plummeted almost more than 2/3 in the last decade, according to a South African National Parks report.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com to sign up for our evening newsletter.